All right, our correspondent Anil Thomas joins us to get us more. Anil, good morning. Now, after the heated Zelensky-Trump spat in Washington, now we see the London summit that took place in Europe to deliberate more on the crisis, Russia-Ukraine crisis. At the same time, this summit has been scorned off by Russia, calling it shameful, in fact. Help us understand the situation at present after the Washington spat. This comes when the European leaders have jointly renewed their commitment and their support to Kyiv. Put all this together, how do you see the situation pan out?
Well, good morning, Preeti. Let's put things very straight and simple. After that big spat that Zelensky and Trump had, it almost looked like that ceasefire talks were in doldrums. But this particular meeting in London, all the world leaders of Europe bathed in good sunshine, surely bring things back into perspective when it comes to talks and talks in the right direction. And I think that's the big takeaway. And the way Europe has reacted to, that window of opportunity that Trump has left split wide open, Europe has wasted no opportunity in once again grabbing that moment and making it count, especially when it comes to looking at peace and especially when it comes to looking at ceasefire, something that Ukraine has been looking for, but were off the table. I think they have seized the opportunity and they have seized it well. And the 4-point agenda that has been put forward by Stammer, which has been endorsed by Zelensky and also by all the other European leaders, clearly leaves a window of opportunity for Russia to accept and for Russia to move on. But having said all that, there has been a change in stance by Russia when it comes to this Russia-Ukraine conflict. Let's also understand Russia for once, as soon as this meeting was convened, Russian foreign minister indicated that this particular meeting, most of the problem that the world is facing is caused by Europe. This was not, say, 2 years ago when the Biden administration was there, where they blame for entire world problems or the problems that the world faces today is thanks to the United States. So clearly there's been a change in stance, I think, from the Russian side too. When it comes to handling Europe, they blame Europe for all the problems that the world is facing today, unlike United States. But I think you got to give full credit to the European Union, NATO, as well as the European leaders of various countries that took part in the talks, that the window left split wide open has been taken with both hands, and they look to be in the driver's seat now if talks have to take place any further.
All right, that was about the European unison for Ukraine. But then at the same time, Anil, with the change in stance by the US at the moment, how do you see that impact the Russia-Ukraine conflict in the days ahead?
Well, it's going to be tough to get all of them back on the table. If you look at the stance, the strong stance that Trump and J.D. Vance have taken, it clearly leaves not much on the table. Let's also understand that the minerals deal was, the big talk for which Trump had invited Zelensky. One needs to understand that there is close to 22 of the 34 minerals that are critical or that are marked under critical category that are still found in Ukraine. That's not all. Close to 5% of the global supply of rare minerals comes from Ukraine. Close to 7% of titanium, which is very important for the world, it comes from Ukraine. And one takes a look at the larger order. Ukraine has more to offer. But let's also accept the fact, why is US acting tough? Because most of the regions where these rare minerals are found are almost in control of Russia. And Ukraine has not denied that. Regions like Donetsk, Zaporozhye, Luhansk, where the minerals are found in large quantities, are all under Russian control. So Russia is not going to back down from where the positions that they have already captured. Ukraine has made an offer which US bills at almost 1 trillion when it comes to rare minerals, and the amount that can be the amount that Ukraine can look forward to make from it. US is rather asking for a piece of the pie. It's just 1/3. If they are billed it at 350 billion is what the deal is. That's 1/3 of what Ukraine has to offer. So it's a give and take. But a give and take that's suddenly changing the geopolitical order. You cannot do that in world order when you are a supreme power, when the world looks at you. So US is almost off the table. It will need a bit of convincing from the other world leaders to now push everything back. You will have other mediators come into play. And this role of, a US-Russia direct talks or a US-Ukraine talks that is going to solve the problem suddenly looks off the table. There would be many more players that will come into play, and we'll have to wait and watch how or when this ceasefire comes into effect, because at the end of the day, remember, Trump, when he came to power, he said this is something that he's going to solve in a jiffy. Well, the jiffy is almost a month and a half old, so we'll have to wait for how the next moment will be decided by the other world leaders, who also have a big role to play in this particular
All right,
peace
so
process.
the jiffy is taking time, Anil, but then in the midst of it, with the change in the stance of the US, will Russia be able to take any leverage? Will it somewhere strengthen its position when we talk of the Russia-Ukraine conflict?
Well, Russia, if you almost look at what Trump has been saying, and Trump has been saying things that almost looks like the script has been written in Kremlin.
Yes.
But having said that, Trump always decides, or Trump has. If you look at Trump 1.0, when he had negotiated with when he had negotiated in Afghanistan too, he didn't make much headway when it comes to talks then. So in 2.0, you could have expected Trump to be much more refined, but Trump played it to the galleries. I think Trump said, take it or leave it, or he was pushing Zelensky to say that your steps could lead to World War III. So he was rather trying to be bombastic there at the end of the day, and I think Russia understands that it's playing with fire. Russia and US are no allies, but there is a shifting world order that we are seeing, especially in geopolitics. That could be something that Russia would be looking forward to. But all that Russia had leveraged in the last 2-3 weeks, with Trump talking the language that Russia wanted, is suddenly looking a bit jiffy, and Russia suddenly shifting its politics from US to Europe, where they are blaming Europe for all the world problems, is also an indicator of that. But I think we'll have to wait for Russia's next move, because Russia is weakened, but I think Ukraine is in doldrums when it comes to this particular conflict and the timeline that it has followed for the last 3 years. So Russia knows that it's against the wall, but Russia also knows that it has got support from other countries which are powerful, which are G7 countries. And I think Russia still has some time to breathe when it comes to not getting pinned to the wall. And I think they are using that leverage clearly very well on the world scene. And that's what we are seeing this to be playing out, because Russia is doing the talking even when Europe is meeting, because Russia knows that they also are facing the heat when it comes to this conflict getting prolonged as long as it goes on. Because at the end of the day, when this conflict began, it said that Ukraine would be blown away in 3 days, 4 days, maximum 2 weeks. We have seen 3 years of this conflict go on. So Russia knows it's not an easy job ahead. Coming back to the table is the way forward, because the taxes that Russian people are facing are something that is very difficult to surmount. Though the people are quiet, there is a bit of protest in Russia, but overall Russia seems to be feeling the heat, but being able to absorb it. But how long can they go on absorbing this heat is something that even Europe as well as America understands, along with China. And I think that's where this particular game will be played time and again.
All right, Anil, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those details.